Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my channel today. Today, I'm going to continue in my series of morning Bible study session with you, and I'm still in the book of Proverbs, and I'm going to continue from where I left off today. So, the last time we stopped at Proverbs chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. And so today, I'm going to continue with verse 6 and verse 7 for today. I think that's enough to keep us busy for today and to keep our mind focused for today. So that's where I'm going to pick up from today. Right? All right, so let's get right into it. So verse 6 is saying, where we left off, we're in the book of Proverbs, and Proverbs is a book about understanding, right? Because we did that yesterday. So today it is saying to understand a Proverbs and their interpretation, the word of the wise and their dark saying, is that Proverbs is Solomon is writing this book, and the reason why he write this book is because he wanted to share his wisdom with us. And so in this book, one of the intent is for us to understand a Proverbs, as it said in verse 6. Now, a Proverbs, my friend, is similar to a parable. You know, we read the Bible so many times, and Christ uses parables to communicate his message. So, you know, some message is so harsh that we cannot tell them as it is because people will take offense. And so people will use parable. That's not the only reason for parable, but based on Solomon, that's the direction we're going today. So a parable is a earthly phrase with an heavenly meaning. It is also a phrase that is used like Christ would use it. It's used to use something that the era is familiar with, have experience with, to give the era a better understanding or a easier ability to solve that parable, because they've done something similar to that. Just like when Christ talked about the parable of the sower, right? Because he knew that the Jewish people, they like to sow seed. They know when it's harvest time. They know when it's the right time to sow, when it's not the right time to sow, and so forth. So he gave that parable of the sower. And so when he was finished with that parable, no one understood what it means, not even his disciples. And so they wanted Christ, tell us this parable too. And Christ's specific word to them was, if you don't know this parable, how are you going to know other parable? Because this was something they were very familiar with. So Christ figured that this parable should be something easy for them to understand, but somehow they didn't, right? So from Solomon's perspective, the Proverbs is like a parable, but they have a underlining, just like the parable, they have an underlining meaning different from what you're actually hearing, or the words that have been spoken. There's something more to it, right? So the reason for Proverbs is that you can have that kind of understanding to go into the silence and pick out what is really happening in that message, in that word, in that sentence, whatever is being said, right? So he said to understand the Proverbs, right? And their interpretation, because the Proverbs itself, it's a Proverbs. It sounds a certain way, but there's an interpretation to it. There's an interpretation. It doesn't stop there. Like I said, you have to go into that Proverbs to get the full, to open up that book, to open up the fullness of what that word is, what that phrase meant, and so forth. Right? So that's the reason why he write the book. And he said he went on to say to understand the word of the wise and their dark saying, because I know when I was growing up, many people used to use parable in my neighborhood. They would say many different things, and you would wonder, what does it mean? Like, for example, when I was growing up, I would hear my parents says, the cow does not know the use of their tail until fly take it over. And so when you hear a cow doesn't know the use of their tail until fly take it over. And you wonder, okay, flies and cows, they're buddies. They always get along. We always see flies and cows together. So if you look at it on the surface, it's a bit puzzling, but it's like nonsensical. But it is a wise person language. It's a wise phrase. It's a wise saying. And so it's a Proverbs. And so you have to get into that saying now to understand the dark meaning. And what I noticed with these Proverbs that our family used to use, or our culture used to use, is that there is really a dark saying. Few of these parables mean something good. Most of these parables that are Proverbs that they would use was really dark. So this particular Proverbs is saying that you don't know the use of what you possess right now. And so what you possess, you take it for granted until you lose it. So for example, many of us, as I said in the previous studies, that many of us are taking our health for granted. Many of us are taking our lives for granted. Many of us, we take our children for granted. Many of us, we take so many things for granted until they're no longer there. And so this is why people often say that don't wait until I die to give me roses today, to give me kisses today, to tell me that you love me today, because when I die, I cannot hear you, right? So you got to know the use of what you have today and make the most of it today. So these are, when you get into that Proverbs, you realize, wow, it actually means something. There's a little dark twist to it, but it means something important. And so Proverbs is saying to understand the wise, because it's a wise saying. And it's dark, but it needs to be discovered, the true meaning, right? Okay, so another Proverbs that I will go into today is, I've heard people said this one. When you're digging a hole, dig two, right? And so you wonder, okay, when I'm digging a hole, I should dig two. That seemed like nonsensical. It seemed like even if I'm going to dig a hole and I intend to dig a hole, why should I dig two? That's more, it's like waste of a time, right? So when you look at it on the surface, it looks nonsensical and it looks stupid. It looks strange. But basically what this Proverbs is saying is that when you're digging a hole to dig two, when you're wishing bad for people, be aware that that bad thing can happen to you. Let's say, for example, let's take it in the natural. You dig a hole for a person in the natural light of it, and you fall in that hole. Now, when the person see you in that hole, they're going to know that there's a hole there. There's nothing else to fall into for that particular person, right? So you are the one who fell into that hole. So it's basically saying that don't wish bad for people. Don't wish bad for people, because while you're wishing bad for people, you need to have an open mind that bad things can happen to you too, right? So it's always good to have good intention for others. And so this is what the parable is saying right here. On the surface, it looks stupid. It looks silly. It doesn't make any sense. But it has a great significant meaning. Few words, a great depth of meaning to it. That's the parable. I'll do one more with you. Another parable I will hear my fellow men talk about is every hoe have their stick in the bush. The hoe that you use to plow the ground. Every one of those hoes have their stick in the bush. Even the axe. Let's put it that way. The axe, it's a little head, and you put the stick in it, and you use it to chop the wood. So every axe have their stick in the bush, right? So what does that mean? In the natural, you look at it and say, okay, I see ox, they need sticks. Okay, fine. What does that mean? That's just don't make any sense. Why are you telling me that every ox have their stick in the bush? Right? So basically saying that when you go into that Proverbs, is basically saying to us that everyone has somebody in this world that they can see eye to eye with. Everyone have someone in this world that they're compatible with. Everyone have someone in this world that there's chemistry that they can connect with. Everyone have that perfect individual in the world that they can blend with perfectly, flawlessly. There's a person out there, right? So sometimes we go through life and we feel like, okay, my luck is so bad. There's nothing out there for me. I always end up in bad relationships, bad friendship, and all this thing. Yes, that might be so. But there are people out there who are compatible to us. There are people out there who see eye to eye with us, who have the same reasoning ability as us. So we're not alone. So when people will look at you and think that you're silly, you're stupid, when you talk, it just don't make any sense. Just remember, you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not the only one who see things that way. There's others that have the same view as you do, as I do. So it's for us to just smile and just move on with life and know that there is hope for a better relationship. There's hope for better friendship. There's hope to connect with people. We don't have to isolate ourselves, right, from people and say that, oh, we can't connect because we're so full of ourselves and we become depressed and we socially isolate ourselves from others because we feel like we just cannot connect. That is not true. There's always someone that you can connect with. There's always someone that sees things the way you and I see them. So be encouraged. Keep looking for that source of connection. Keep looking for that friendship. Keep looking for that one that you can reason with. Provide comfort to, and that one that they can provide comfort to you, because there is people out there. Don't just throw it off and call it quits and say, you know what, I don't need to look for no more friendship. I don't need to look for no more relationship. There is a person, there's many people out there that you are compatible with. And verse 7 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So here this particular verse is telling us that a reverence of God is the beginning of wisdom. When we have a love and reverence for God, wisdom will begin to birth in us. Wisdom not only will begin to birth, but it will continue to develop in us, and we will become as wise, even as Solomon, even probably greater than Solomon, right? So we will have wisdom begin to birth in us. Not only that, but he's saying that, but the fools, they despise wisdom and instruction. So when you tell a person who is foolish, let's put it that way, something wise and will build them up and something to caution them, sometimes they will see it as an offense. So rather than you accomplishing good with this person, they let your words, your proverbs, your saying create a discord between you and them, create a detachment between you and them. So rather than they take that with a grain of salt, like, they would say the Proverbs, take it and just, for what it is, and see if you can make sense of that parable or whatever they're saying to us, we get offended, right? And at the end of the, let's take, for example, you're getting into a marriage relationship. Everybody know that the person you're with is flirting all over the place, have no commitment to anyone except you. And sometimes you know about it too. And here comes a person saying, you know what, out of love, you know what, this is not the right person for you. This person is not ready to settle down. That they have no good intention. They have no desire of getting married, right? And yet we are forcing ourselves on them. We want to get into that relationship with them. But you think that, okay, you just don't like me. You don't want me to get married. You don't want me to have a relationship. Why everyone want me to be alone? And instead of you seeing it and saying, you know what, even if I get married now, there's a great possibility that later on, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, I will be alone. What's the point? What's the use? Why not go looking for someone where there is a possibility that the relationship could last? And so we have to be careful, when it comes to this. When somebody give us information, I believe it's always wise to look at it, sleep on it, meditate on it. And if there's nothing in it for you at the end of that sleeping and that meditating on it, then throw it in the garbage and move on. And thank them for that word, whether negative or positive. And even in the negative word, it can help us to see something about ourselves that we didn't know exists, right? Or about another person that we didn't quite sure exists. And so it is for us to look at everything that life throws at us, weigh them, and decide what is good and what is not. The things that are good, we hold on to them, we cherish them. Like Solomon said, you will take hold of wisdom if you're not fool, but the fool will hate wisdom. They will despise it. They will see it as a means for harm rather than the good that it was intended for. So with that said, today, I pray that your heart was blessed. My heart was blessed. I see you here tomorrow, same time. May God bless you today. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing, like, share, hit the notification button, and I'll see you at the next one. May the peace of God that passeth all understanding cover your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus this day. Amen. God bless you.